Hey folks, it's me, the Bee, and welcome back to another review. So this review is actually going to be based on a request, and the request comes from the YouTuber STVG71. How you doing, buddy? This review today is basically going to be talking about The Innocents, directed by Jack Clayton. The Innocents is a ghost story that came out in 1961, and it stars Deborah Kerr and Michael Redgrave. Now, it is based off a very well-known and very chilling ghost story by Mr. Henry James, originally entitled The Turning of the Screw. However, The Innocents is... or rather the title of The Innocents, was taken from a stage play by William Archibald. And I'm not quite sure as to why, but you know what? It fits the actual attitude of the movie. It's also known predominantly for the amazing atmospheric cinematography by Mr. Freddie Francis. Now, what Francis did was that he used shadows and deep focus as well as lighting just to add an extra layer of absolute paranoia and horror. Now, the thing is about The Innocents is this. If you are a fan of gore and blood and all that sort of sensationalistic stuff, The Innocents has none. This is a strictly psychological horror film, and it is, quite frankly, one of the best ever made. It is on the lists of so many people, and namely academics such as Mr. Christopher Frayling. Christopher Frayling credited this film for its brilliance as well as its cinematography, the acting of course, the story, and just the overall attitude that it takes. The Innocents is a story about spiritual possession. You have the character of Deborah Kerr, who plays a governess, and she moves into a mansion to take care of the children. You know, she's a school teacher, and it's her job just to give them an education. Now, the thing is, there is so much more going on in this house than she could have possibly ever anticipated, and it's pretty damn obvious. But what truly makes The Innocents one of the monumental classics of the gothic horror genre is just how subtle it really is. Now, don't get me wrong, there is some pretty outright creepy stuff going on here, namely of which, you know, involves the spiritual possession of children. And I'm not going to go too far into that because, once again, as with any movie really, this is something that you have to see for yourself, and therefore you will be able to appreciate that much more. But this film is all about what you feel inside. What demons are scarier than the ones that lurk within you, the ones that are in your mind, and the ones that haunt you everywhere you go? And that's no knock against movies such as The Exorcist or anything like that, not at all. But The Innocents is an exercise in subtlety. That's what it is. This film is tremendously subtle. It doesn't show you a lot, but it gives you just enough to truly realize the absolute horror that's going on here. Deborah Kerr turns in a wonderful performance. She's very proper and has like very modest manners and whatnot, but she's also very, very clever. And you have to realize, back in the 1960s, female characters weren't really treated with the respect and the gramercy that they deserved. But with Kerr's turn here, even though she's obviously quite frightened as to what's going on, she also finds the need to protect these kids because they are under her charge. And when she bears witness to the spiritual world and the possession that these children go through, and you know, her coping mechanisms, it's a wonderfully layered performance. Same thing can be said for Michael Redgrave. Now, yes, he is a Redgrave as part of the wonderful Redgrave family, and that talent just like seeps through with this man. He has a very sort of straightforward attitude. Well, not straightforward, but he's your typical sort of gothic horror type heroic character. He's very stoic, but at the same time, he's not completely unapproachable. And, you know, he's the father to these children, and he just wants to do what is best for them. Now, let's get to the really cool stuff. This film looks spectacular, and just the way Freddie Francis, you know, framed these sequences and the way he lit them and the use of shadows and depth of field, and you really get a sense that this house that Deborah Kerr is living in, it's just full of life. It is life from beyond the grave. And also, I forgot to mention this, I can't believe this, the synthetic score, not synthetic, synthesized score, was actually pioneered from Daphne Oram. Now, up until this point, the synthesizer and that sort of, electronic sort of sound wasn't really used that much, if at all. But with what Miss Oram did is that she actually popularized it. She made other filmmakers realize that there was a place for this sort of sound, and what better way to really show this talent than in a story like this? Everything about it is, it's how you feel. Everything about The Innocents comes back to the fact that you are under an influence, and it's a heavy, dark, and imposing influence. There is a regular sense of oppression in this film. This movie is not about having a happy ending and really giving a sense of hope. There is something truly terrifying going on here. More terrifying than, a mask wearing murderer wielding a knife. Once again, it comes back to the deeply psychological issues. When it comes to human psychology in movies, what you don't see is what truly horrifies you. You can see as much bodies being ripped in half and gore and everything like that you want, but it's not something you can really sympathize with. But when you see a person undergoing some sort of deeply psychological torment and you are seeing the cause of this, it is something that you can empathize with. When you see a character like suffering, you sort of tap into that sense of thinking, what would I do in that situation? How would I react? It's a deeply personal means of telling a story, and that is what an effective ghost story does. It may not necessarily rely on the outward horror of the situation, that being the spirits and, the outside entities. It's more about the characters and the way they contend with this sort of stuff. Humans are very fragile beings. We need stuff explained to us, and things that don't have an explanation and don't have a reason, that is what really turns us off balance. Like, we may feel a sense of curiosity about it, but there is still a sense of like terror, fear for our lives. If we came across something that we have absolutely no conception of, it screws with our mind. And there are some things in the world that just should not be understood by humans. But humans, being the curious creatures we are, once we get a wind of something, we don't let it go. So The Innocents more than lives up to every single piece of hype that it gets, but it is considerably deeper than just being your average fright flick. It really did pave the way for the more contemporary equivalents, like you have The Conjuring and Insidious and numerous others. I would be here a very long time if I were just to rattle off every single film that took influence from this. But the most recent version, or rather recent ghost story that actually nails what a ghost story should be about, is Crimson Peak. It is a gothic horror, but the ghosts are not the central feature. They are a contributing element, but what the true, stars, if you will, it is the people. Tom Hiddleston's character, Mia Wasikowska, those were the dramatic centres of the film, and Jessica Chastain, of course. But yeah, that is what a ghost story is all about. Ghost story is it's about tapping into what's inside of you, because most of the time, the ghosts were people themselves, and it's really strange. We may feel a sense of fright when we see a ghost, but at the same time, depending, of course, you also feel sympathetic. Ghosts are more or less, automatic replays of events gone by. They're just doomed to play these tragic events, such as their death, over and over again. And how could you not feel for having a fate like that? I know, I kind of went off topic here, but back to The Innocents. Jack Clayton gave us a wonderful movie. We have Deborah Kerr being amazing and fantastic, and Michael Redgrave just doing his thing. And, Freddie Francis and Miss Daphne Oram, they gave us something precious with this film. And I am ecstatic that to this day, The Innocents is considered a highly, a highly regarded film that still remains completely important. So I give The Innocents a 5 out of 5. You know, not just the fact that it's just considered important, but it lives up to what is being said about it. And that is the best thing the film can do. Say as much as you like about it before you even see it, or, you know, spin it as much as you possibly can. But what truly matters is this: every single audience member is going to come away from this movie feeling something. Well, audience members who go in with an open mind, of course. But The Innocents provokes you to think. It provokes you to think while at the same time experiencing this tale of horror and you know, absolute despair. It is pretty damn amazing. So yeah, so Mr. or Miss STVG71, this was your request, and I have to say this right now. Thank you so much for actually paying attention to me and, you know, basically for this request. This is the reason why I review films. It is not necessarily for my own glory, but just I like to get through to people. Even if it's one person who actually replies back to me and you know, tells me what they think, that's when I feel fantastic. That is when I know, one way or another, I have done the job that I set out to do. Now, am I to everyone's tastes? Of course not. But, you know, to those of you out there who continue to watch my videos, thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you. So once again, guys, thank you for listening to me ramble. And as usual, I shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.